No, did somebody actually figure something out? I'll just take yours. Do this, x and y. Did somebody actually get some real answers? Who put something in for x? Did somebody must have got one answer to here. Brianna, what'd you put in for x?
I put 0.
And got what for y?
4.
Good. So we got 0, 4. 0, 4. Love it. Love it. Love it. Somebody else put some other number in, please. Isabel?
-1,
-1 got you -2. Am I gonna go with that? Alright. Anybody else agree with that? Anybody else do that one?
No.
No? Somebody else get another number in there somewhere? Carol Winkman?
-2 and -4.
-2, -4. Oh, look at it is looking good. I like the way that's working there. Nobody else do anything higher in the negative world? Scaredy cats. Did you, Jaden? What? Negative what?
I put 1.
We already got -1. I'm looking for ones I haven't done.
1.
You did 1?
Yeah.
Oh boy. It ain't gonna fit on this graph, I can tell you that, because I can tell right now this thing's shooting way up there, so I need something that fits on the graph. Did you get something that fits on the graph? No.
Yeah, but they're already.
It'd be 15 or something, isn't it? 14? One is 14. Massey!
Oh, I got -3,
And what'd you get?
-2.
Ooh, I like it. -3, -2. Anybody do negative? I would very much like a -4 in there. Oh, Winkleman. You get to Winkleman. What do we get? +4. Now, perfect. We're gonna stop there. You don't need to do any more. You will see then, ladies and gentlemen, that I have my nice little parabola. It's kind of a skinny little thing. And what made it a little skinnier than what you're usually used to is this number right here. A 2 in front of it, the higher the number is, I believe, the skinnier it is, or maybe the 8 makes it skinny. It doesn't matter. But you are going to say to me, there must be a better way than sitting down and doing this for everything because it takes a long time. Yes, somebody say that.
There must be a better way.
And that's what we talked about today, the better way. But before we do that, a couple terms we have to identify here. You'll notice, like I said, all parabolas with these quadratics are symmetrical, which means they're the same on one side as they are on the other. And guess what we call that little line that falls right here? Maybe if you look at the top, you'll see. That is the
Axis of symmetry.
Thank you. The axis of symmetry. Now the beautiful thing about the axis of symmetry, children, is once you know the axis of symmetry and you find one point, you've actually found 2 points. Okay? Because, like, let's say you found this point right here, which isn't really a point, but I don't have any others to work with. You know that if this is the axis of symmetry, there's also going to be an identical point there, that same exact distance from the axis of symmetry on the other side. Notice this. This right here was 2 over. Look, right there. That was 2 over. This was 1 over. That was 1 over. Once you know the axis of symmetry, you're really halfway done because once you find half the points, you find all of them. The other thing is we have this point right here. I don't know, does it say what it is on that other thing? That is it's the vertex. Which makes sense because that's the little point. If it is a parabola that goes this way, this vertex would be called the, does it say anything?
Y-intercept.
No, that's not the y-intercept. This is the y-intercept, sir. We're crossing the y-axis. The vertex in this case is called a minimum. Why is it called a minimum? Because it's the lowest point on the graph. Okay? If the parabola goes the other way, then the vertex would be called, anybody want to take a shot? That's the highest point, so not minimum, but the maximum. Okay, so if the x value, if the x squared was negative, it's an upside down parabola, that's the maximum. If it's positive, it's like this, that is the minimum. Okay, now going back to the top notes here, and then we'll come back to this thing here. When you come across a quadratic, let's say that one that I just did there, what was that? It was y equals 2x squared plus 8x plus what? 4. Let me give you this in clear, concise steps. Follow these steps and really your whole world will open up for you here. The first thing you do when you have a quadratic is label your A, your B, and your C, which means this. Here is my A. The number in front of x squared is my A. So A is 2. The number in front of the x is B. So it is 8. And the number at the end is my C. Make sure you figure these things out because they will be very important for your future. Okay? Step number 1 was right here. Label those things there. Step number 2 is find your axis of symmetry. What you're going to ask, how do I do that? Thank you for asking. Right here. See this? Look, I have it labeled for you. This is your formula for the axis of symmetry. X will equal negative, make sure you get that negative in there because people get thrown off, B over 2A. Which means you already know what your A, B, and C are, so you plug those points in. B is 8. 2 times A was 2, and it's a negative sign out there. Alright, if I solve that, my axis of symmetry falls where x is, what is 8 over 4 negative? My axis of symmetry is where x is negative 2. Stop me if you didn't catch on to that. You just put those points into that little formula. X is negative 2. What does that mean? Ladies and gentlemen, that means, let me flip to our other screen here, that means where x is negative 2, which is right here, is where you draw the vertical axis of symmetry. Ain't that handy? Whatever axis, that is going to be your axis of symmetry. Kids, Mrs. Stone has an announcement. Oh, no, it's on by my computer screen.
Oh, so this is what you did.
Yeah, did your bibliography turn on? Do you have your works cited?
I got it, so you put the chapter on there, okay.
Well, I just put it on there because I was.
Perfect, well, I was just gonna go put mine and put it in the office, I think that lady's gonna take, you know, put yours
Oh,
in the office.
yeah, will you please? I didn't really know. I was never instructed on
No,
the
that's
fine
fine.
points of where to put this thing.
No
I'm
problem.
just glad that I have works cited and parenthetical notation.
Yeah, we didn't do any notes, they kind of made theirs.
We just
The
made
research
stuff.
paper, some of them made it like a journal entry.
We just made stuff up.
We didn't make anything up, they researched them, it was actually.
I didn't even look at any of them.
You didn't look at it?
Yeah.
I mean, you made up a story of what it would be like for you, but you
Yeah.
based it on.
Yeah.
what was-
We
Yes.
didn't have to cite anything
Yeah.
because it was
Yeah,
like a
because you
story.
didn't, it wasn't,
Yeah.
it was like a story, it wasn't.
Exactly.
And that's what I was thinking. Yeah. With information on where we got these from. I made it. I didn't care.
Okay,
That would just look weird.
got that? So now you have one step 2 number done. You've labeled, you found your axis of symmetry. Your next step in this whole crazy mixed up process, number 3, is you need to find the max or min, based on what type of parabola it's going to be, and you know, max or min, by putting is always a bad word for me because I don't, is it 2 T's or 1 T? It's 2 T's, isn't it? Well, then what's putting? You're putting on a golf course. See, you shouldn't be. It should not be the same. By putting, find the max or min by putting the answer for number 2, find it into the equation, into original equation. So you do have to do some work here. What is meant by that, oh, did I run out of room? Okay. Here is the answer to number 2. I know that x equals negative 2. I want to put negative 2 into this equation to see what value coincides with that for x. So there's a little work to do. I got to do it. And please take your time on this. I'm not going to give you a lot of problems, but oh look, kids, Miss Lopez has a announcement.
So what's going on? How bad was it, the basket?
The guy didn't seem to think it was nothing to worry about. He was like, not a big deal. Of course, they're not
So are
here
they
now.
still
They're
here?
going to get distilled water, I believe, for their lid thing.
Distilled water?
For batteries, you have to put, the battery must be a
So
little
they're still
water.
here working?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, it was supposed to be kind of all day-ish.
all right. Carry on with me.
They're very pleasant people though.
Oh, good. Carry on.
Alright, back to this. So I am putting -2 into this equation to see what my y value is, so I know where to put my max or my min. So I put 2 in there times -2 squared plus 8 times -2 plus 4. Doing the math, -2 times -2 is +4 times 2 is 8. -2 times 8 is -16 plus 4. I end up with 12 to the good and 16 to the bad, which means y at this point is -4. So I have my point for my max for my min. It is -2 where x is and -4 for y. That's the point. And if you go back to the thing we already graphed, guess what? Here at -2, where did it bottom out? -4. Usually ooh and ah is appropriate.
Ooh.
Now, the next little step here is a couple things for the next step. Sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't. Step number 4, which I'm going to have to put off here in the corner. Okay. C is your, anybody know what C is? What is this number? It's a special number. Jenna was going to say what? C is your, anybody know what I'm going to say? Here, maybe this will help you. I am going to. Thank you very much, Keith. C, ladies and gentlemen. The number C is your y-intercept. C is your y-intercept. Now, that only helps you if your y-intercept happens to fall on your graph, because sometimes at 0, when x is 0, it's somewhere way higher, it doesn't actually fit on your graph. So it only helps you if it falls on your graph, which in most cases it probably will. So you will see here, like I showed you prior, that letter C was 4, correct? 4 was where it crossed the y-axis, y-intercept. And then once you know your y-intercept, you can find the point that's directly opposite of it based on your axis of symmetry. This was 2 that way, so you go 2 this way, and that's your other point there. So now what do we have? If I didn't have this drawn, I have my min, I have 2 points up here. The unfortunate thing is you got to do a little bit work to find one more point in between here somewhere. You could draw the parabola with those 2 points, but you really don't know how wide or how narrow it is or anything like that. So your last step is, step number 5, are we on? Step number 5, this is really too crazy big. Step number 5, and here's kind of scary. I'm going to tell you number 5, pick a logical value for x and figure out one more point. Value for x and put in equation to find a y. Find a point. In other words, you got to go old school. If I was given this and I didn't know what my parabola was, okay, I want to pick a point between 2 that I don't know, which means simply this. Okay, I know what x was when it was 2. I know x was when it was 0. I probably want to pick -1 as a point, plot it, and make sure, see what I get for my y value. Should I try -1? Maybe I should try -1. Let me put it in here. I can tell you just absolute memorized like this. What was it? It was 2a squared, 2x squared, sorry, plus 4x, plus 8x, plus 4. And I said pick -1 for x because it falls between your thing there. And you got 1 times 1, -1 times -1 is positive, 1 times 2 is 2, minus 8 plus 4 ends up being -2. So here at -1 is -2, and then since you know that one, you can figure out this one. Everybody's happy, and then you can draw your parabola. Woo-hoo. You are less than ecstatic or enthusiastic as I thought you would be. No, don't force it. Let me give you this. Who knows how much we'll have or won't have. We have to now actually do a problem that we don't know the answer to, and see if it makes any sense to you. See if this makes any sense at all. Let's see. Laney Kavarik, pick a number between 2 and don't listen to anybody or look at anybody else. 2 and 12.
8.
We're going to do number 8 together. Oh, great. Great boogie. Number 8, children, number 8. We will do it together, just you and me. Let me look at it here. So let's see if we can't follow those steps. Here we go. Blank sheet of paper. You have all that stuff there. I have to write it down. What is my quadratic? My quadratic is y equals x squared minus 8x minus 8x plus 13, right? Making some observations here. First of all, how is this parabola going to look? Is it going to be upside down or right side up? Is it going to have a max or a min? How about this? It's going to be a min, because if this is positive, it's going to shape like this. All right, let's follow our steps. First of all, I'm going to give my graph here. I could have copied it off the paper, but I won't. Anybody help? A little help here? And always, the thing gives you, it gives you a little help here. It goes positive 1 to 7. Probably should have done this before. Sorry, I feel bad. So the book gives you this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. What's my first thing I'm supposed to do, Luke Franklin? Figure out the A, B, C. Right, so you draw off to the side, you write your A, your B, your C. That's pretty simple. What is my A? There's no number there, so do I get all crazy and say, start crying because there's nothing there? No, it is a 1. Thank you very much. B is -8, and C is 13. And here's one of those where I said, if I look at this, my Y-intercept is 13, it doesn't follow my graph, so it really doesn't do me any good, but that's not the step. Step number 1 is done. Step number 2 is to put that in my formula for the axis of symmetry, which is -b/2a. You'll get that memorized. So -b is -8. 2 times a is 2 times 1. What do I get if I solve all that? I believe I get +8/2, which is 4. Does 4 sound like a good thing to me or not? Yes, because where x is 4 is kind of the middle point of my graph. 1, 2, 3, 4. The book gave you a little key here. So what do I do at that point, Mandy Marco? What do I do at that point? Huh? Yeah, draw a vertical line. That is my axis of symmetry. My parabola is going to wrap around that line. Yay. So far, so good. Step number 3. Riley Harrington, step number 3 is to do what?
Find the maximum or minimum by putting the answer from number 2 into the original equation.
Right. I am going to take my Mr. 4 and put it into that equation so I figure out what y is that corresponds with that. So here I go. I do 4 squared minus 8 times 4 plus 13. 4 squared is 16. This is, whoa, negative 32. That's ridiculous. But I have 19 to the good and 32 to the bad. Holy bejeebies, what is that? 19? I'm sorry, 29 and 32, what's my balance? How about negative 3? So I know there's a point on my parabola. The lowest point of my parabola is 4, comma, negative 3. That's the lowest point on my parabola. So boom, 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 negative 3. That is the bottom. That's where it bottoms out. Whew. Now remember, I believe step 4 was the Y-intercept. That's unfortunate for you because the Y-intercept is somewhere, well, it doesn't give you 13, does it? No. And 13 would be way up here somewhere, so you don't have that. So here's where you gotta just go old school. What would be a logical Riley-Harrington point to pick for x? You don't wanna pick 0. And as a matter of fact, if 0 is that far out, positive 1 might be far out too. I would probably pick 2. I would pick some of these points right here. 2 is probably a good one. So if I put 2 in my equation, 2 squared minus 8 times 2 plus 13. 2 squared is 4, minus 16 plus 13 means I have a positive 17 and a minus 16, which gives me positive 1. So there's a point at 2, comma 1. 1, 2, comma 1. I kind of got a lot of blue dots there, I'm sorry. I probably should erase those because they'll confuse you, as they are confusing me. Somebody tell me, now that I know this, what should I do next? Jaden, shoot.
Go exactly across.
Yep. Since this is my axis of symmetry, that's 2 that way, there's going to be another point exactly over there, that same distance apart. So there's 0. And then, because you really need more than just 3 dots, it's always good to have 5. You want to find one more point. I would probably do positive 3 there as well. Figure that out. So it'd be 3 squared minus 8 times 3 plus 13. And really, the reason you do that is because if for some reason you made a mistake right here, you will know for sure if you find the next one and it doesn't fit in the middle of all that stuff. So it's always good to have one spot just as a check. 9 minus 24 plus 13, you get 22 minus 24, which is a negative 2. So 3 comma negative 2, does that sound like a winner? Yes. Right? Wait, yeah. 1, 2, 3, negative 2. Same thing on the other side. And there, from there, if you had a French curve, you could draw a nice little parabola looking little shape right here. And ladies and gentlemen, you have now just graphed